Greetings. Thank you all for joining us. We apologize for the delay. We had a slight technical difficulty. Thank you for hanging on. My name is Era Bedell, and I'm the Director of Earned Media with Southern Poverty Law Center Action Fund. Thank you again for joining us for our corporate accountability campaign today. For those of you who are joining us in the room and online, I encourage you to follow us at SPLC Action on Twitter, as well as hashtag Say No to Mo. Again, thank you for joining us, and the press conference will begin. Seth?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Seth Levy, and I'm the Chief Strategy Officer of the SPLC Action Fund, the 501c4 affiliate of the Southern Poverty Law Center. Thank you again for being here today, and a very special thank you to my colleague, Eric Ward, Senior Fellow for the Action Fund, as well as the Executive Director of Western State Center. The SPLC Action Fund is a catalyst for racial justice, working in partnership with communities to dismantle white supremacy and advance the human rights of all people. We invited you here today because we recognize Alabama Congressman Mo Brooks as a dangerous threat to human rights, our nation, and its people. Some of you may be wondering about the connection. What does an Alabama congressman have to do with Los Angeles? Well, Mo Brooks helped incite the January 6th insurrection at the U.S. Capitol. And four of his top corporate supporters, Boeing, Northrop, Lockheed, and Raytheon, all have facilities here in South Bay. And just last night, we were actually out at Space Park at Northrop's facility, staging a direct action, projecting a video of some of Brooks's greatest hits, which Northrop and these other companies have helped fund over the years. We believe that the employees of these companies, as well as the South Bay community that hosts them, would be surprised to learn that they support Brooks or any elected official that has so feverishly worked to undermine our democracy and has a decades-long track record of spewing hate. SPLC Action is calling on Boeing, Northrop, Lockheed, and Raytheon to sever ties with Mo Brooks and publicly pledge to never again provide any direct or indirect financial, material, or moral support. These companies make up Brooks's top 11 all-time corporate donors since his 2010 election to Congress, with Lockheed at number 1 and Northrop at number 2. But the support they showered on Mo Brooks is more than financial and arguably more valuable than donations. They've also lent their credibility to Brooks, inviting him to speak at events and photo opportunities, such as groundbreakings, ribbon cuttings, news announcements, and facility tours, all of which Brooks has gleefully publicized to boost his reputation. I have no doubt that these companies justify their support because of what Brooks has done on aerospace matters. But when you support a politician, you don't get to earmark what that support is for. When you support a politician, you get the whole package. And in the case of Mo Brooks, it's an individual who has claimed that immigrants are victimizing Americans and talked of shooting them as a solution, who's quoted an anti-Semitic trope from Adolf Hitler's manifesto Mein Kampf on the floor of the House of Representatives, is a central figure in the big lie conspiracy who incited the mob on the morning of January 6th, and just days ago was one of only 14 members of Congress to vote against making Juneteenth a national holiday. Despite these and other controversies, Lockheed, Northrop, Boeing, and Raytheon have steadfastly stood by Brooks, even though their websites vigorously claim they are all committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Boeing recently said that it fired 65 employees for hateful conduct. Why won't they fire Mo Brooks? Would they tolerate an employee who recites the words of Hitler in the workplace? Lockheed's values say that demonstrating the right behaviors matter to Lockheed Martin, that they seek to demonstrate good citizenship, and leadership responsibility across their footprint. What about Brooks's actions over the last decade are the right behaviors that matter to Lockheed? Raytheon's website boasts of promoting STEM education with Latinx students, some of whom are the children and grandchildren of immigrants. How does Raytheon explain their support of Brooks to them, whose stance on immigration is so extreme that he's openly used about killing them? Northrop's statement of values says that we do the right thing and that we do what we promise. Why is it so hard for these companies to do the right thing and dump more Brooks? This should have been done months ago, if not years. We're tired of waiting, and today we'll be launching a campaign here in South Bay calling on these companies to do the right thing. I'll talk more about that campaign in a moment, but now I want to turn things over to my colleague, Eric Ward.
Thank you. My name is Eric Ward, and I'm a senior fellow with the Southern Poverty Law Center Action Fund. I'm also a fourth generation Los Angelean. Most of my family lives in and around Los Angeles in the South Bay area. My family came here in the early 1900s after fleeing lynching in Shepherdsville, Kentucky. It is in Los Angeles where we made our home. California and Southern California is diverse. And it is that diversity that has crafted my values. My father, a World War II veteran, will turn 96 in October, also worked at many of these aircraft companies. It is why today we are calling on these companies to stand up and to take responsibility. Let us be clear, we are not asking Lockheed or Boeing and others to lay down. We are asking you to rise up and to lift up the values that are critical to a successful nation. On January 6th, one of the most horrifying things happened in our nation. Over 140 law enforcement officers were injured and 5 people killed after attempted insurrection at our nation's capital. Mo Brooks, a representative of Alabama, spoke at the rally preceding this insurrection, calling on those who had gathered to march on the Capitol. This was a significant moment. It is time for us, each of us, to take responsibility for the highest aspirations of our nation. In short, the right to live, love, worship, and work free from fear and bigotry. California and the rest of the nation has made great strides. While we still have ways to go, most Americans understand that our goal is to move forward together. It takes each of us, and each of us means exactly that. Each of us, including our corporate leadership. A September 2020 Citigroup study showed that the United States has lost $19 trillion over the last 20 years due to extremism and racial discrimination. That is $19 trillion that our country can ill afford to lose. And we certainly can't lose anymore. Mo Brooks represents the face of that extremism and discrimination. His rhetoric and his refusal to accept responsibility for his actions continues to place our nation at risk. This is the message to Boeing, to Lockheed Martin, to Raytheon. Your political contributions cannot fuel violent rhetoric and irresponsible rhetoric. The refusal to end these contributions now make you complicit. We each have a leadership role to play. and this is yours. It is time to say no to Mo. And I'll invite Seth back up.
Thank you very much, Aaron. So as I was mentioning before, we'll be launching a campaign today here in South Bay. It's going to include TV commercials, digital ads, outdoor advertising, and direct mail, calling on these companies to do the right thing, informing people about who they are supporting. And we're happy to show you the TV ad that's going to begin airing today on cable news. So let's go to that video.
Alabama Congressman Mo Brooks incited a violent insurrection at the U.S. Capitol that left 5 people dead.
Start taking down names and kicking ass!
He quoted Adolf Hitler on the floor of the House and joked about shooting immigrants to drive them out of the country.
The illegal aliens, I'll do anything short of shooting them.
So why are South Bay's Northrop Grumman, Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, and Boeing still supporting this radical right congressman? Tell them to stop their support for Mo Brooks now.
So that's a preview of what's to come, and we don't want to run these ads. We look to hear from these companies and come to a resolution on all of this, and then we can pull them down. So that concludes our remarks, and we'll be happy to take questions from anybody.
Sure. So you mentioned, Mo Brooks is a congressman from Alabama. Why was this action taken here in Los Angeles?
So the question was that Congressman Brooks is from Alabama, and why was then this action taken here in Los Angeles? There are several reasons for that. First, we want to highlight that corporate support has no borders, and that these companies, their employees, and communities here in Los Angeles are actually helping support this congressman all the way over in Alabama, whose reach is national. Number 2, we also really wanted to highlight the immigrant community that's here in Southern California, given Brooks's record on immigration and the really awful, reprehensible, hateful things that he said about immigrants over the last 10 years. As I noted before, Raytheon, for example, boasts about the outreach that they're doing to Latinx students whose grandparents and parents are immigrants. And it's just really shameful that they claim to be supporting these communities, but then they also support Mo Brooks.
Yes, I'm just trying to set a little context around the real world harm caused by this. Is this just indicative of the rhetoric that any person elected would use?
So the question was, what is the real world consequences really of these things that Mo Brooks says? And for that question, I'm going to turn it over to Eric.
We have often grew up with the refrain, sticks and stones may break our bones, but words will never hurt us. But the truth is that words do set a context, and they set a level of permission. And at a time when we are dealing with the big lie, whether we're talking about election fraud or whether the insurrection actually happened and who was responsible, the continual rhetoric of Mo Brooks continues to allow individuals to act irresponsibly. And what we're trying to bring is accountability. These are values that are accountability, transparency, are values that are critically important to our nation and to governance and to democracy. But most corporate leaders would also, I think, share that transparency and accountability are critically important. What Mo Brooks did on that day, on January 6th, using his words, was to galvanize a crowd who had gathered for a rally and assured them that what they believed was actually justified and could lead to action. In many ways, we should understand that words are the gates upon which violence can occur. Having organized against hate violence and hate groups for over 30 years, one of the things that we understand is that most hate violence and political extremism begins first with words. When you're an elected official representing an entire country, your words become critically important. Mo Brooks has made no effort to hold himself accountable or to be transparent in terms of the words that he used. And it's important for Boeing, Northrop, Lockheed, and Raytheon to understand that their political contributions also constitute words. What they are signaling, right, is an acceptance for irresponsible behavior. It's time for us all to stand up and take responsibility, and political contributions are the most measurable way of making that impact.
So has there been any response from the companies or from Mo Brooks today?
There's been no response from the companies, which is obviously disappointing. Again, we think that this really should be a very easy call for them. Given Brooks's record, there really shouldn't be much internal debate about this. As for Congressman Brooks, he has responded, and let's just say that in his response, he doesn't deny any of the things that we've highlighted from his career. He has shown no remorse. And, it's just really demonstrated that all he is an ideologue who believes his path to re-election is, making racist and xenophobic and anti-democratic statements. People think of Mo Brooks, they don't think of a great public policy thinker.
Yes. So we understand this is about corporate responsibility, but what can the ordinary citizen do?
There's a lot the ordinary citizen can do. The question was, this is a campaign about corporate responsibility, what can the ordinary citizen do? So I think there's several things they can do. First is, contact these companies, especially if they live in a community where they have facilities like here in Los Angeles, and tell them that, this is unacceptable, that they don't want their local companies supporting a congressman like Mo Brooks. And certainly both employees at these companies say the same thing. They could also call on members of Congress. The average person should also call on members of Congress about this. Again, looking for ways in which, Brooks, or to hold Brooks accountable for his action on January 6th. There's been talk of sanctions or against him or other forms of things that they can do in the House of Representatives, but nothing has really happened. He hasn't even been stripped of his committee assignments.
This question is for Eric. What can companies do as well when vetting elected officials and making sure they're in alignment with their values, particularly these companies who have been recognized with diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Yes. So the question is, what can corporations and companies do to verify and to try to assure that those who they are providing political contributions to align with the company's values? I think I would offer three things. The first is to do some basic due diligence. Much information has been gathered. We understand it even now as the Department of Justice is beginning to take individuals who are involved in insurrection to court. One of the things that we are hearing for those who are being tried is that they engaged in those actions because they believed what elected officials were saying to them. And so basic due diligence should lift up for companies exactly the words that are being utilized by some of these elected officials, in particular Mo Brooks. The other, though, is to also check in with organizations who are monitoring this type of extremism, the Southern Poverty Law Center Action Fund, Anti-Defamation League, and other organizations. But the third, I think, is this. This is a time for each of us, right? Not just corporate leaders and corporations, but for all of us to take a step back and to think about our values as individuals, our values in the community, and our values as a nation. And then, when you are thinking about that political contribution, look and see if that elected official actually aligns with those values. And if they don't, and you have made a contribution, you have a responsibility to ask for that contribution back and to demand it back. That's what it means to be a leader today in the fight for democracy and civil rights.
This question is for Seth. What's next with your corporate accountability campaign?
Thank you. So the question is, what's next with the campaign? So as I was mentioning before, today we're going to be starting various paid advertisements to help raise awareness in the South Bay community of who Mo Brooks is, what he's done in the past, and the corporations that are supporting him. That will again include TV commercials, digital ads, outdoor advertising, and direct mail. We'll probably also do some more direct action projections on corporate facilities, so that will be coming in the future. And again, we're hoping that we don't have to do all of this, that the companies will respond to us and we can sort of reach a resolution and that they will do the right thing. I mean, really, that's what we're really hoping, and we're here, we're waiting. Are there any other questions? Okay. No more questions. Well, that concludes this press conference, and we will have additional video and photography of the direct action from last night available for anyone who wants that, as well as links to the TV commercial and other media that will be run. So thank you very much for joining today. Eric, thank you very much for joining me. And, have a great day, everybody.